I will say this. I'm sure that thing works really well, that HD antenna shaped like a goalpost.
It does, actually.
It does not work in Stephen Gostkowski's house, I've heard.
It does not. Stephen Gostkowski cannot find the center of those. So let's talk about that Titans-Broncos game. Tough for hashtag breach brand, because what you don't want is a kicker from Nashville who plays for the Titans doinking and stoinking and boinking and whatever else you might call his kicks. He missed 3 straight field goals in Denver, breach, and topped it off with an extra point before coming back to make the game-winning field goal as the Titans topple the Broncos 16-14, which, by the way, I believe the exact same score as last year's home opener for the Broncos, a crippling loss to the Bears, 16-14.
Here, before breach talks, can you just preemptively...
Don't go me for the Broncos. I'm out of the Broncos.
No, I want you to preemptively play the Kevin Harlan field goal sound, because that feels fitting as ever.
Okay, so this is not, I don't know. This is not, I think I have it. This is not Gostkowski missing him, but it's just, is that, it's the volume turned down this.
Oh, he missed. He missed. Oh, and he may have pulled a hamstring or a muscle, and there is complete.
So, how did Gostkowski not grab his leg at some point?
That's a good point. I would say on Monday, I probably did 4 or 5 radio interviews, talking about week 1 of the NFL season. And most of the folks, I did it with like Adam Gold or Darren Smith in San Diego. They actually listen to the podcast. And they were like, okay, so it says 120 minutes. Can you sort of walk us through what you talked about? I was like, well, actually 20 of it is just me playing this Kevin Harlan call of Randy Bullock missing the game with tying field goal for the Bengals. At any rate, breach. Stephen Gostkowski was terrible. Eventually came back and hit the game winner. Do you want to defend a kicker here? And do you have any anticipation that Stephen Gostkowski will be in the Hall of Fame one day?
Yeah, they kept mentioning that. Here, let me just say the craziest part to put this whole entire night in perspective is Stephen Gostkowski went into this game as the 5th most accurate kicker in NFL history, and he was so bad, by the time the game was over, he had fallen down to be the 8th most accurate kicker in NFL history. He's been playing for 14 years, and to fall 3 spots in one game is absolutely insane. And this game was so long, I actually forgot there was a first game. When we jumped on this podcast, for a second, I was like, are we talking about Titans-Broncos? What else went on? And, we Steelers-Giants too. But here, this was, if you're the Titans, look, you had the worst kicker, literally the worst kicking experience the NFL had seen in 30 years last year. I think they went 8 of 18. They're the first team since 1985 or 86 to make less than 50% of their field goals in a season. You just don't see that anymore. So Mike Vrabel, he's like, oh, we got Stephen Gostkowski. All my problems are solved. So what happens? Gostkowski walks out there for his first field goal attempt. It came in the first quarter. Boom, he misses. You know what? He hasn't kicked in a year. He signed late in the offseason, didn't get a ton of training camp. You don't think anything of it. It was from 47 yards. It's not a gimme. All right, so you send him out for a second field goal. This time, it's just before halftime. You're thinking, you know what? We'll take a 10-7 lead at half. We're good. Boom, ball gets tipped. He misses again. Now, if you're Vrabel, you're like crapping your pants. What is going on here? What's with me and kickers? I don't know what I'm doing. And then we get to the second half, and Gostkowski misses another field goal. He's trending on Twitter. People are thinking that, Brinson, you're booking him tickets from Denver to Mars. Things were just completely out of hand. And then Gostkowski misses an extra point. And at this point, he is walking over the sideline. He takes off his shoe, and he's looking at it like it's his shoe's fault. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if he was going to start kicking barefoot. Broncos used to have a kicker who kicked barefoot, Rich Carless. Gostkowski was playing mind games with himself. And so here's what I would ask you guys, since you aren't the kicking gurus, but you surely can answer this question. On the Titans' final drive, they are trailing 14-13. They take over with 3:05 left. You're Mike Vrabel. In your head, how close are you thinking you have to get to even think about attempting a field goal?
In the end zone.
End zone, and then you go for the 2-point conversion.
Absolutely.
And then you send, one-shoe Gostkowski on his way.
Well, but it was so bad that, and I didn't hear him answer the question, but I'm going to assume that he did acknowledge this. Vic Fangio, the Broncos head coach, didn't call any timeouts as Vrabel and the Titans were going to the end zone. It was I joked that it was like a galaxy brain move, but I think he was doing it. He was trying. He was like, look, if you guys want to play for a field goal, I'm going to let that dude kick that field goal all day because I don't think he's going to be able to put it through the uprights. He might slip on the way to the ball. He's going to be panicked. I mean, it's tremendous, like a tremendous response by Gostkowski to step up and bury that thing. Because if you're in that spot, and that's a good question. Debo asked him slack. Should have tried to ice him. Why would you not bang a timeout there, Fangio? I didn't think about that. Great call, Debo. What is he thinking?
According to Lindsey Jones, Fangio didn't use his timeouts because he said he didn't want to extend their drive and that the running back went out of bounds.
So
that's before
he's trying to get them to play for a field goal and hope they would miss.
Yeah, but
that's bad. I mean, look,
it's bad on a number of levels, and I like Debo's question as well. But I mean, because you left Drew Lock with 30 seconds, maybe less than that, 15 seconds or something.
17 seconds.
Yeah, come on.
You gave Drew Lock 17 seconds after the squib kick wasn't touched. And good job by them and terrible squib kick to try and get in Brandon McManus field goal range. I mean, it's bad coaching. I think that
I thought they had bad coaching. That wasn't their only clock management issue. They were up 14-13. They got the ball with 4:06 left in the game, right? You have the ball at 4:06. What you want to do is try to move, but also maybe try and run out some clock. They only ran off 51 seconds. The Titans didn't have to use a single timeout, and they got the ball back with 3:05 left with all their timeouts. And I do understand that, hey, look, we want Gostkowski out there kicking the field goal. That's why they didn't use the timeout. But you do get to a point where you have to say, all right, if they get inside this yard line, he's an NFL kicker. Even if he's missed 3, if they're inside 35 yards, he's probably going to make it unless he's Randy Bullock.
Hall of Fame kicker.
Yes,
he said he's also on the broadcast. Stephen Gostkowski, by the way, will never, ever, 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 ever be in the Hall of Fame. There are 4 kickers in the Hall of Fame currently. Justin Tucker will probably be 5 one day, maybe. Breach and I have hung out with one of them, Morton Anderson. Shout out to our guy. After his induction, he didn't like us talking to him.
Vinatieri will get in.
So, yeah, right. But Gostkowski has no chance of getting the Hall of Fame. Anyway.
Not now.
That's right. You have to know, if you're Vic Fangio, that it is paramount to leave as much time as possible to try and go back the other way and score.
This is what frustrates me to no end. Like, why you had all this time in COVID times to think about this stuff, to get all the stats nerds together. I don't know why we read the quote from Lindsey Jones, but I mean, that does not make any sense. Hey, Breach, let me ask you quickly. We know that hip surgery was something that Stephen Gostkowski had in the offseason. Was it, if you're going to blame it on something, is it partly that? Is it that plus the mental? Is it some combination, one thing or the other?
I think it's completely the hip surgery. I think that's why the Patriots got rid of him. I think that's why he was out as a free agent so long, is because your hips that's a key part of kicking. And so he was waiting probably till he was absolutely sure that he was 100% healed before he felt comfortable even trying out with the team. And he bought a house in Nashville in early July. So I think he felt that if he was going to kick this year, it was probably going to be with the Titans. And then remember, he didn't sign until a little bit later. So it's not like he hadn't kicked in a while because he'd been rehabbing all offseason. He's probably only got 3 weeks of kicking under his belt. And, coming off a big offseason operation, offseason recovery like he did, I think it's a legitimate excuse. But and since the Titans won, it doesn't matter now as long as he gets his act together. I do not think he will be released. If the Titans would have lost, maybe he gets cut.
The last one, he's gone.
Oh, yeah. If he misses the last one, but
is there anybody out there on the market that they could actually replace him with?
Well,
so the Titans had 8 field goals last year. 8 field goals.
The Browns just cut Austin Seibert and signed Cody Parkey. So that's how bad things are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can just go out and grab like a random. I mean, that's what the Titans. Like, it could have cost them a trip to the playoffs last year. Their field goal.
Who's your number one available kicking free agent, John?
Austin Seibert.
Oh, there you go.
Who's your number 2?
Yeah, who's number 2?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're probably calling up like Adam Vinatieri.
Wow, that's a steep drop off.
If you don't mind the DUI charge, you call up Aldrick Roses. He had a good year with the Giants in I think 2018 and struggled in 2019. So
Well, you mentioned the DUI. I don't know the specifics of it or how serious it was, but it's obviously not great. But Isaiah Wilson, their first-round pick, also had a DUI.
Yeah, and he wasn't out there on the field. Clearly, the run game wasn't as good as you thought. It felt like they were going to bust through late with Derrick Henry. And by the way, Derrick Henry, not one of the top fantasy performers in this game. Ryan Tannehill, 22 points. Drew Lock, 14. Noah Fant, 14. The Broncos actually covered +3. But this is one of the few games this week where CLV, closing line value, mattered because it opened as Broncos -1 or -2. If you bet the Titans plus the points, you clearly won. If you came back and got the Broncos +3, you also won. So not great for Vegas in that particular regard because you could have hit both of those if you were fortunate enough to do it. The under 41.5 obviously hit. This game was never had a chance of going over, although the Broncos did have a possession on 4th and 1 on the goal. They went for it. They didn't get it. They kept running at Jeffrey Simmons for whatever reason. Stop doing that. That dude is a man-child on the interior. And he had some off-field issues at Mississippi State, but that's not like
before that. High school.
He had some off-field issues in high school. Sorry.
He's been, by all accounts, model since.
Excuse me. My apologies to Jeffrey Simmons, who he fell in the draft because he tore his ACL.
That's right. In February.
Process,
February. Yeah. And they still drafted him in the 20s.
Back and played as a rookie. He is a
grown man.
I mean, he took Melvin Gordon, or was it Philip Lindsay? He took one of them and picked him up and scoop slammed him.
That was Philip, yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe why Philip got hurt. Drew Lock, Ryan Tannehill. I don't know that you came away from this. I think you came away from this game going, all right, I kind of like what Drew Lock's got, but I don't know that they have the upside to make a deep playoff run or anything. And I think you also maybe came away going, don't think Ryan Tannehill's going to be the most efficient quarterback in football. Either of those things work out for you, Ryan.
I think Drew Lock is the guy, after watching 5 games last season, this is what you wanted to see if you were squinting. Now, if you had your eyes completely open, you're like, okay, some of this stuff doesn't look great. He overthrew some deep balls that could have been touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy dropped a couple passes. But I like what I see. He's wearing out Noah Fant, and I think that's the way you want to go as a young quarterback, have someone you can rely on. And Noah Fant looks 100% better than he did last year, which is understandable. He's in year 2 now. Melvin Gordon had that stupid fumble early on, but he put up some yards and scored a touchdown late. I think there's a lot to like. I'm sort of upset that their right tackle opted out. Upset for the state of the offensive line because the right tackle struggled, and obviously Von Miller getting hurt because I think this football team could be completely different. That said, you can make an argument for the Broncos should have won that game, but also you could just say, well, Gostkowski missed 15 field goals, so the Titans should have won.
Yeah, I'm going to say B.
Yeah, week 1 expectations in terms of everyone not being completely, teams being rusty, but I think Tannehill flashed at times, and I think Drew Lock looked good, but I'm still not all in on Drew Lock being the savior we're sort of hoping for.
Yeah, I do. I absolutely agree with that. I think that if I'm the Broncos, like you kind of said, everybody was optimistic after the way he finished the 2019 season. He went 4-1. So in that sense, you saw a quarterback who didn't regress. He looked decent in this game. But on the Broncos, I probably would have wanted him to play a little bit better. You mentioned the overthrows, but he was also going up against a pretty decimated Titans secondary. They had Adoree Jackson was on injured reserve. Jonathan Joseph got injured in the game, and he was knocked out. Rashaan Evans got ejected from the game for punching Jake Butt. Not for punching a butt, but for punching Jake Butt.
You punched Jake Butt in the butt.
Yeah, so he got ejected. So you're the Titans. You're down 3 guys in your secondary, and Drew Lock couldn't take advantage of that. So I think
and
that
breach, by the way, they had 2 rookies playing cornerback. One was an undrafted free agent.
Right. So in that sense, I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from Drew Lock. And then you look at another addition, Melvin Gordon, 15 carries, 78 yards, which is really good. But he also had a huge gaffe because he lost a fumble in the first half in Broncos territory, and that led to a Titans, I think, scoring drive. They scored a touchdown from 23 yards out. So they only go 23 yards. Yeah, they did not kick a field goal. It did not end with a Gostkowski miss. So that was a huge kind of turn of events right there because the Broncos were up 7-0 and all of a sudden it's a tie game because of Melvin Gordon's fumble. So there's definitely some concerning things. I'm not sure, Drew Lock against the Steelers next week. I would be a little bit worried about that if I'm a Broncos fan because he didn't do more against Tennessee, but he wasn't bad by any means at all.
And he got, like you said, he got burnt by 2 Jerry Jeudy drops.
Yeah.
There were the play calling, I don't think, for the Broncos was fantastic. I just think Locke can spin it. I just have concerns about if they're playing an elite defense like the Steelers, he's probably in trouble. But I mean,
here's the thing: he is fun to watch when he gets out of the pocket and just rips one. But you don't need to be running out of the pocket when there's no reason to leave the pocket and then just make a stupid throw. And
I don't think the Broncos are locked in. Sorry,
nice.
No pun intended, but really no pun intended. I don't think the Broncos are locked in to their quarterback in the future. I do, however, think that
Wait, what does that mean?
I mean, he's a second-round pick in his second year with 6 starts. He's not.
Listen, man, John Elway, by the way, whoever does the graphics, I love you at ESPN. The Big Ben graphic was insane. The John Elway graphic was even crazier.
Elway looked like, who was it? Somebody was like, Elway looks like Big Tom Callahan.
But Elway has to hit on this quarterback. He's 0 for 12. So I think he's sort of all in on Drew Lock at least for a couple months.
Ryan Tannehill threw 43 passes. That ain't going to work.
Well, I mean,
Tannehill is throwing 43 passes. The Titans are probably in trouble.
Jack Conklin's gone. Isaiah Wilson didn't play because he got in trouble. So you talked about the offensive line not being what we're used to seeing.
Derrick Henry should have blown them out of the water.
The Broncos defense isn't bad. Von Miller not being there is terrible.
In the second and third and fourth quarters, because it was back-to-back drives, the Titans had a 12-play, 73-yard drive, a 14-play, 40-yard drive, which is weird, with 15 penalty yards, and a 15-play, 67-yard drive. They came away with 6 points on those 3 drives, even though they got into scoring range, obviously, on all 3 drives, 2 missed field goals and a touchdown. You run that many plays with Derrick Henry in your backfield, and you should be smashing somebody. That game shouldn't have been that close.
Yeah, but again, it's week 1. I'm willing to cut both teams some slack. What I'm not willing to cut slack on is the time management into that game. There's no warm up to that. You should know how to do it from Jump Street.
I would say Noah Fant, 5 catches, 81 yards, 1 touchdown, in the first quarter, basically.
Yeah.
And then they didn't go back to him at all. Dude was making plays. What are you doing?
It was nice to see because last year you could see him struggling.
Yeah, but he struggled early on, but then he flashed late.
And just like Sunday with Detroit, Hawkinson, you can feel this is gonna be a big year for him too.
Sure, both those guys could end up being awesome. Locke completed 22 of 33 passes, 216 yards and 1 touchdown, 95 quarterback rating. Melvin Gordon, 15 carries, 78 yards and a touchdown. Phillip Lindsay injured, did not return. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of these running back situations, whether it's with I'm blanking on the other one. Indianapolis with Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor could step in. But this could be a situation where if you faded Melvin Gordon in fantasy, you're probably kind of hosed. Ryan Tannehill, for those wondering about the prop bets, Ryan Tannehill, 14 rushing yards. Cashed it maybe by half or just missed it by half, depending on what you got. Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, terrible calls by me. Locks of the year, I said, before the game with Sully, and those did not hit. But Jerry Jeudy, easy over. Should have been way more. Judy's a nice little buy low, maybe even in season longs because he was targeted 8 times and just 2 horrific drops by Jeudy. And Derrick Henry got 31 carries, 116 yards. I thought the Broncos defense played pretty well. The Broncos, if they hadn't lost Von Miller and then they lost A.J. Bouye and Bradley Chubb was coming back from injury, they'd have a chance to be a really good defense. And I just think
Courtland Sutton didn't play on the other side of the ball. So,
Courtland Sutton hurt them. They probably win this game if they have Courtland Sutton and Von
They should have won the game anyway. They had a chance to win the game. You had a field goal kicker that literally forgot how to kick field goals.
Which is a problem. And I don't know that they do win the game. I think if everybody has everyone, the final score of this game is probably 30-27 instead of 16-14. Because it's like the Titans are moving up and down the field. It's just, Stephen Gostkowski doing things that kickers shouldn't do. And here's a great quote on why he removed his shoe. He said, quote, "I would have taken my pants off to make that last kick. But luckily, Ryan, he did not have to take his pants off to make that last kick."
By the way, if Vrabel was asked about Gostkowski giving him a shot at the final kick, he said, "I just kind of know. It's like it's been red 10 times on roulette, so I'm going to bet black this time. Doesn't work that way. So
Unless you're Wesley Snipes.
that's called the gambler's fallacy. Like you're like it's like, oh, it's the coin toss has come up heads 12 times in a row. It's definitely gonna be tails next time. No.
Mike Vrabel seems like the type of guy when you explain to him what the gambler's fallacy is, he just tells you to shut up and punches you in the face.